The day humanity arrived at the Deathworld Council. With blood on their ships reached its breathtaking climax when saboteurs unleashed chaos during Earth's crucial hearing. As toxic gas filled the chamber and panic erupted, Captain Mara Lynn risked contamination to save Judge Clavon, her supposed enemy, revealing the true saboteur and proving that humanity's violent nature could manifest as heroic sacrifice when it mattered most. The corridor lights flickered, washing Captain Mara Lynn's face in alternating shadow and harsh blue. She stood at the viewport, watching the debris field that had once been the southern hemisphere of Draxon Phi's largest moon. Her reflection, weary eyes, regulation-tight bun coming loose after 36 hours without rest, stared back against the backdrop of destruction. "Captain," Executive Officer Renji appeared at her shoulder, tablet in hand. "Ambassador Velcor is requesting your presence on the bridge. News feeds from the council station are concerning." Mara nodded, not yet turning from the viewport. "Let me guess. They're calling us butchers again." "Worse." Renji's jaw tightened. "The Galactic Times is running with bloodthirsty Earthers slaughter raiders. Council braces for barbaric first contact." A bitter laugh escaped her. "We responded to a distress call from civilian researchers. Those raiders were executing hostages when we arrived." She finally turned from the viewport, the weight of command settling back onto her shoulders. "We saved 273 lives yesterday, and ended 68. Renji's voice remained neutral, a skill he'd perfected during their 5 years serving together aboard the United Earth humanitarian ship Resolute. "The Council doesn't distinguish between necessary and unnecessary violence. To them, Earth is just another death world producing more killers." The term still stung, even after years of humanity's integration into galactic affairs. Deathworld, a classification for planets whose very environments bred species too aggressive, too resilient, too adaptable to be trusted with advanced technology. Earth had been quietly classified as such long before humans achieved faster-than-light travel. The classification wasn't public knowledge to most of humanity, but as captain of Earth's premier diplomatic vessel, Mara had been thoroughly briefed on the political realities. "We're not at the Council's mercy," she said, striding toward the lift. "We're here by invitation to discuss provisional membership." After 3 rejections, Renji matched her pace. "The blood on our hull won't help our case." Mara's steps faltered momentarily. The UEHS Resolute's exterior still bore the evidence of yesterday's rescue operation, impact scars from debris, and more damningly, the crimson streaks where wounded refugees had been hurriedly brought aboard through emergency hatches. There hadn't been time for proper decontamination protocols. Lives had been at stake. "Have the hull cleaned before?" she began, then stopped herself. "No, leave it." "Captain?" "I said leave it." Her voice firmed. "If the Council wants to judge us, they should see exactly what we've done and why we did it." The bridge hummed with activity as they entered. Ambassador Velcor, tall, angular, with the characteristic silver-blue skin of the Varine people, stood at the central console, studying tactical readouts. He looked up, 3 pairs of eyelids blinking in succession, a sign of agitation among his kind. "Captain Lin." His voice resonated at the peculiar frequency typical of Varine speech. "The Council envoys are 20 minutes from intercept. They're broadcasting formal diplomatic protocols, a white flag approach. They request visual confirmation of our status and intentions." "Open a channel," Mara ordered, squaring her shoulders. "Full transparency." Security Chief Zhao stepped forward, her compact frame somehow managing to block Mara's path to the communication station. "Captain, respectfully, I suggest we delay visual contact until we've had time to prepare our presentation." "You mean hide our actions?" Mara raised an eyebrow. "I mean contextualize them," Zhao replied. "The hull damage, the medbay crowded with aliens, the blood. It all reads as aggressive without proper framing. Ambassador Velcour nodded. Chief Zhao raises valid concerns. First impressions with the Council are critical. Many delegations spend weeks in preparation for even routine appearances. And how many of those delegations arrived fresh from preventing a massacre? Mara asked quietly. She moved past Zhao to the command chair, settling into it with the practiced ease of someone who had earned her position. We are a humanitarian vessel. We will not apologize for humanitarian actions, nor will we hide their consequences. She nodded to the communications officer. Open visual channels, standard diplomatic protocols, and make sure the external cameras are functioning at full capacity. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a sleek, gunmetal gray vessel approaching. Its lines were smooth, almost organic, bearing none of the practical angles and exposed heat sinks that characterized human ships. At its center glowed the emblem of the Deathworld Council, a spiral galaxy with a prominent red barrier encircling its outer arm. A face appeared on screen, humanoid, but distinctly alien. Pale green skin stretched over sharp cheekbones, and compound eyes that caught the light like fractured emeralds. The representative wore the formal black and silver collar of a council judge. UEHS Resolute, the figure intoned. Voice translated into standard galactic with only minimal distortion. This is Judge Clavon of the Deathworld Council Evaluation Committee. We are approaching under diplomatic immunity to escort you to Council Station Gamma 9. Please confirm your peaceful intentions and prepare for inspection. Mara rose from her chair, hands clasped behind her back in the universal posture of diplomatic openness. Judge Clavon, this is Captain Mara Lin of the United Earth Humanitarian Ship Resolute. We confirm peaceful intentions and welcome your escort. She paused, then added deliberately, we request medical assistance for 231 refugees currently in our care, rescued yesterday from raider attacks on the research outposts of Drax and Fa. The judge's compound eyes flickered, surprise, perhaps, or suspicion. Rescued, with weapons, Captain Lin. With necessary force, Mara replied evenly. The raiders had already executed 42 civilians when we arrived. We prevented further loss of innocent life. So you claim... The judge's voice carried the faintest edge of disbelief. Prepare for our boarding party. Council protocol requires verification of your account. The screen went dark, and Mara turned to face her senior staff. Renji's expression was carefully blank. Ambassador Velcour's triple eyelids were rapidly blinking again, and Zhao looked ready to overhaul the entire security protocol. They're going to use this against us, Velcour said quietly. The Council has rejected Earth's application 3 times already, citing our inherent aggression. This incident plays directly into their prejudice. Then, we change their minds. Mara's voice carried the certainty that had earned her this command. Chief Zhao, prepare all combat records for review. Full transparency. Executive Officer Renji, coordinate with medical to ensure our refugees are comfortable but accessible for Council verification. Ambassador, I need you to brief me on Judge Clavon, species, biases, voting record on Deathworld classifications. As her officers dispersed to their tasks, Mara returned to the viewport. The Council vessel was visible now without magnification, sleek and predatory against the star field. In its reflection on the viewport glass, she could see herself more clearly, the lines of fatigue around her eyes, the specks of dried blood still on her uniform collar from carrying wounded children to the medbay. Earth had been classified as a death world long before humanity knew there were other worlds at all. They had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them daily, with predators, diseases, natural disasters, and climate extremes that forced them to adapt or die. Those adaptations, aggression, tenacity, the capacity for violence in defense of tribe, were now judged as disqualifying traits by species who had evolved in gentler cradles. But those same traits had saved 273 lives yesterday. If the Council couldn't see that, perhaps they weren't worth joining after all. The docking procedure was seamless. Council technology meshing with Earth engineering in a temporary but secure airlock. Mara stood at the reception point, flanked by Renji and Ambassador Velcor, with Chief Zhao positioned discreetly behind them. The ship's most senior doctor, Dr. Eleanor Hayes, waited nearby, prepared to brief the Council on the medical status of the refugees. The airlock cycled, and Judge Clavon stepped aboard, followed by 4 other beings of different species, all wearing the distinctive black and silver of Council officials. Captain Lin. The judge's compound eyes swept the reception area, lingering on the visible bloodstains that still marked the corridor, leading to the emergency medical receiving area. Your ship bears concerning evidence of violence. Evidence of rescue, Mara corrected. Would you care to meet those we saved before you begin your inspection? Something flickered across the judge's expression. Surprise. Perhaps at her directness. We will follow Council protocol. First, we must secure and examine all weapons discharge records, combat logs, and command decisions made during your intervention. Ambassador Velcor stepped forward, bowing with formal precision. Judge Clavon, as Earth's diplomatic representative, I must insist that the humanitarian outcomes be considered alongside tactical decisions. 273 beings are alive because of this ship's actions. And 68 are dead, replied one of the other council members. A tall, willowy being with skin like burnished copper and eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Killed by weapons banned in 17 sectors. Standard Earth defensive armaments, Chief Zhao corrected, her voice cool. Fully disclosed in our previous applications to the Council, and deployed only against armed hostiles actively executing civilians. Judge Clavon made a gesture, and the Council delegation fell silent. We will examine all evidence impartially. Captain Lin, you will provide unrestricted access to your ship's systems and personnel. Of course, Mara agreed. Though I would request that medical areas be approached with care. Many of the refugees are still in critical condition. Your concern is noted. The judge's tone suggested it was barely relevant. Now, show us where the violence began. Hours later, Mara stood in her ready room, staring at the preliminary report the Council inspection team had filed. Ambassador Velcor sat across from her, his silver-blue complexion dulled with fatigue. They're calling it disproportionate force, Mara said, tossing the tablet onto her desk. Apparently, we should have attempted negotiation while the raiders were executing hostages. The Lithrai member, the copper-skinned one, is particularly hostile. Velcor noted. Their species evolved on a world with no predators and little competition. They find any form of conflict deeply disturbing. There's disturbing, and then there's willful blindness, Mara replied. The evidence is conclusive. We responded to a distress call. We witnessed executions in progress. We used minimum necessary force to neutralize the threat. The door chimed, and Renji entered without waiting for acknowledgement. A breach of protocol that immediately put Mara on alert. Report, she said, rising from her chair. The Council delegation is demanding access to the Combat Command Center logs, not just the recordings, but the physiological data from the bridge crew during the engagement. Mara frowned. That's unusual. It's unprecedented. Ambassador Velcor interjected. They're looking for evidence of emotional response, elevated adrenaline, endorphin release patterns consistent with combat arousal. They're trying to prove we enjoyed the fighting, Mara translated, disgust evident in her voice. Renji nodded grimly. Chief Zhao is stalling them with procedural questions, but they're getting impatient. Mara paced the small confines of her ready room, mind racing. They're not following standard evaluation protocol. Something else is happening here. Captain. Velcor hesitated, then continued. There are rumors that certain factions within the Council are actively working to maintain Earth's Deathworld classification. Our technological advancement rate is concerning to conservative members. You're saying they're rigging the evaluation? Mara stopped pacing, turning to face the ambassador. I'm saying that objectivity may be compromised. Velcor's triple eyelids blinked in rapid succession. The timing of this incident, a human ship with visible blood arriving at the Council immediately after combat, plays too perfectly into their narrative. The implication hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Sabotage, or at least exploitation of circumstances. Options, Mara said crisply, looking between her XO and the ambassador. We could cite Earth diplomatic protocols and restrict access to non-essential systems, Renji suggested. It would buy time. And reinforce their suspicion that we're hiding something, Mara countered. We could request a different evaluation team, Velcor offered, though the delay would be significant. Mara was silent for a long moment, weighing alternatives against principles. Finally, she straightened. Decision made. We give them everything, she said. Complete access, combat logs, physiological data, personal records, all of it. Captain, Renji began, alarmed. If they want to judge us, let them see us clearly, Mara continued. Not just the violence they expect, but the compassion they deny. Show them our doctors working 30-hour shifts to save alien lives. Show them our engineers donating blood compatible with Srisari physiology. Show them our mess hall converted to house orphan children. Ambassador Velcor studied her, with all three eyes fully open, a sign of intense focus among his people. You're taking a significant risk, Captain Lin. If they find even one moment of battle exhilaration, one instance of retributive, rather than protective violence, then they find the truth, Mara said simply. That humans are complex beings capable of both aggression and altruism, and that those traits exist in balance, not opposition. Renji didn't look convinced, but he nodded. I'll inform Chief Zhao to grant full access. After he left, Velcor rose slowly. The Council hearing is scheduled for tomorrow at Station Gamma 9. As Earth's representative, I should prepare our formal position. Ambassador, Mara said as he reached the door. Why did you agree to represent Earth? Your people have been council members for centuries. Velcor paused, his silver-blue skin catching the light. Because, Captain, I have worked alongside humans for 15 years. I have seen your kind build hospitals on worlds that rejected you. I have seen you weep for the deaths of aliens you barely knew. His third eye, the one positioned centrally on his forehead, fixed on her with unnerving intensity. The galaxy needs Earth's compassionate strength, even if the Council fears it. After he departed, Mara returned to the viewport. The Council station loomed now, a massive construct of gleaming metals and crystalline habitation spheres, home to representatives from over 300 worlds. Somewhere in that labyrinth of diplomatic chambers and council rooms, Earth's fate would soon be decided. On the hull beneath her viewport, the bloodstains remained, testimony to both violence endured and lives preserved. The council chamber was a perfect hemisphere, its curved ceiling a projection of the galaxy itself, slowly rotating in real time. The delegates sat in tiered rings, each planet's representatives positioned according to their membership status and tenure. At the center, elevated on a dais, sat the 7 high judges, one from each of the founding worlds of the Council. The Earth delegation had been positioned at the very lowest tier, directly on the chamber floor, a not-so-subtle reminder of their provisional, probationary status. Mara stood beside Ambassador Velcor, with Renji and Chief Zhao flanking them. Dr. Hayes had remained aboard the Resolute, tending to the refugees whose fate hung in the balance of these proceedings. Judge Clavan stood before the High Council, delivering the inspection team's findings with cold precision. The human vessel Resolute engaged in armed conflict resulting in 68 casualties. Their weapon systems, while disclosed in previous applications, exceed reasonable force parameters for a ship claiming humanitarian purpose. The judge's compound eyes reflected the starlight from the ceiling projection. Furthermore, physiological data from bridge crew shows elevated combat hormones consistent with Deathworld species response patterns. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Mara maintained her composure, though she felt Renji tense beside her. The inspection team recommends continued classification of Earth as a Class 5 Deathworld, with extended probationary status and restricted technology access for a minimum of 50 standard cycles. 50 years of technological quarantine. Mara's hands clenched behind her back, the only outward sign of her dismay. The Chief High Judge, a massive being of silicon-based biology, whose name translated roughly as the one who deliberates with perfect clarity, gestured for silence. The Council acknowledges the inspection team's findings, the Chief Judge rumbled, voice like stones grinding together. Before rendering judgment, Earth's representatives may address the Council. Ambassador Velcor stepped forward, his ceremonial robes catching the starlight. Esteemed members of the Deathworld Council, I speak not only as Earth's diplomatic envoy, but as a Vereen who has served alongside humans for 15 years. The events at Draxon 4 have been presented without context or compassion. He activated a holographic display, showing the Resolute's approach to the besieged research station. The human vessel responded to a distress call, a call the Council's own patrol ships acknowledged but deemed low priority due to the remote location. Captain Lin's crew acted when no one else would. The display shifted to show the aftermath. Not the combat, but the rescue operations. Humans carrying wounded aliens, setting up emergency medical stations, sacrificing their own blood supplies for compatible species. Yes, the Resolute's hull bears blood, Velcor continued. Blood shed in defense of innocent researchers from 17 different worlds, including 3 Council member planets. This is not evidence of savagery, but of sacrifice. The copper-skinned Council member who had been most hostile during the inspection rose. Sacrifice? They used weapons banned throughout civilized space. They used standard defensive armaments, Velcor corrected, against raiders who had already executed 42 civilians and were systematically killing the remaining hostages. So they claim, the Council member retorted. Yet we have only their records as proof. Records that could easily be falsified. A ripple of agreement passed through portions of the chamber. Mara's stomach tightened. They were losing ground before they'd even properly begun. If I may address the Council directly, she said, stepping forward. All eyes in the chamber turned to her, some curious, many hostile. The Chief High Judge considered for a moment, then inclined its crystalline head. Captain Mara Lin may speak. Esteemed Council, Mara began, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. You have reviewed our combat logs and medical records. You have analyzed our biological responses and tactical decisions. But data alone cannot tell the full story of what happened at Draxon 4. She moved to the center of the chamber floor, aware that every gesture was being scrutinized for signs of aggression or deception. I would like to introduce witnesses who can speak to our actions. With the Council's permission, I request that survivors from the research station be allowed to testify. Murmurs again filled the chamber. The High Judges conferred briefly before the Chief Judge responded. This is irregular. Captain Lin, the survivors are not cleared for Council proceedings. Then, perhaps, came a new voice. You would accept testimony from a Council citizen who was present. All heads turned as a figure entered through the chamber's main doors. Stooped, with age, leaning on a gnarled staff. The being who approached was unmistakably Medusan, one of the founding species of the Council itself. Ancient eyes surveyed the chamber from a face creased with the wisdom of centuries. Professor Ixthalan, the Chief Judge acknowledged, surprise evident even in its crystalline tones. The Council recognizes your right to speak. The elderly Medusan made his way slowly to the center of the chamber, nodding respectfully to Mara as he passed. "I was leading the xenobiology research team on Draxenfru," he said, his voice surprisingly strong for his apparent age. "When the raiders attacked, they separated us by species. Council members were held for ransom. Non-council species were executed immediately." A hush fell over the chamber. "I witnessed 19 of my colleagues murdered before the human ship arrived." His ancient eyes swept the assembly. "Captain Lin's crew fought not with bloodlust, but with precision. They prioritized hostage safety over their own. When I was wounded, a human medic used her body to shield mine from further fire." He turned to face the high judges directly. "I have served this council for 173 cycles. I have never witnessed such courage and compassion from any species, council member or otherwise. If Earth is judged too violent for membership, then perhaps the council has forgotten that peace sometimes requires those willing to defend it." The silence that followed was profound. Mara could see the impact of the professor's words rippling through the assembly. Doubt where there had been certainty. Consideration where there had been dismissal. Then, from the upper tiers, a voice called out, "Pretty words cannot erase bloody deeds. We all saw the stains on their ship." Others joined in, the mood of the chamber threatening to shift again. Mara exchanged a glance with Velcor, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. This was the moment. Either they would break through the prejudice or be condemned by it. She stepped forward again. "Yes, there is blood on our ship," she acknowledged, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "The blood of the wounded we carried to safety. The blood of my crew who gave transfusions to compatible species. The blood that stains our hull stands as testimony, not to our violence, but to our commitment to life." The main doors to the chamber suddenly hissed open again, and a council security team rushed in. Their leader approached the high judges, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. The chief judge's crystalline form actually changed color, shifting from clear to a troubled amber. "This council session is temporarily suspended," the chief judge announced. "Security concerns require immediate attention. All delegates will remain in place." Mara turned to Renji, who was already touching his communication implant. "Something's wrong on the Resolute," he whispered. "Communications just went dark." Before Mara could respond, the chamber's environmental systems abruptly shut down. The magnificent galactic projection flickered and died, plunging the room into dimness. Emergency lights activated moments later, casting harsh shadows across alarmed faces. "Lockdown protocols engaged," announced an automated voice. "Atmospheric containment compromised. Please remain calm." Panic spread like wildfire through the assembly. Various species reacted according to their nature, some freezing in place, others surging toward exits, many calling out in their native tongues as translation systems failed. "Captain!" Chief Zhao had pushed her way to Mara's side. "The Resolute's emergency beacon just activated. There's been a hull breach." The blood drained from Mara's face. "The refugees?" "Dr. Hayes reports they're secure, but there's damage in multiple sections. Initial readings suggest sabotage." The implication struck like a physical blow. Someone had attacked her ship, likely to discredit Earth during the most critical diplomatic moment in human history. The Council security forces were attempting to maintain order, but the chamber was descending into chaos as life support systems began to falter. Several delegates from methane-breathing species were already showing signs of distress. Mara made her decision instantly. "Renji, get to the Resolute. Coordinate emergency response with Dr. Hayes. Zhao, find Ambassador Velcor and stick to him. Someone's trying to frame us, and he's our only council ally." "What about you, Captain?" Zhao asked, already scanning the crowd for the ambassador. "I'm going to help evacuate the chamber," Mara replied. "If someone's trying to paint humans as violent, let's show them what we really do in a crisis." She pushed against the tide of panicking delegates, making her way to where several methane breathers were collapsing as their atmospheric supports failed. Tapping her universal translator, she called out, "I'm Captain Lin of the Earthship Resolute. Follow me to the emergency respiratory stations." Whether they understood her words or simply responded to her decisive tone, several delegates turned toward her. Mara led them through the crowd, using her compact but strong frame to create a path toward the chamber's emergency medical facilities. The air was growing thin, alarm klaxons wailing as the station's automated systems detected the life support failure. Through the chaos, Mara caught glimpses of other dramas unfolding. Council security arguing among themselves, high judges being hustled to safety by their personal guards, ordinary delegates abandoned in the rush. She reached the emergency cabinet and smashed the glass with her elbow, ignoring the cut that immediately welled blood. Inside were universal respiratory adapters, designed to provide emergency oxygen to a wide variety of species. She began distributing them to the most affected delegates, demonstrating proper application with quick, precise gestures. "Captain Lin!" a voice called through the thinning air. Professor Ixathalan was making his way toward her, supporting a younger Medusan who appeared to be struggling to breathe. "My colleague requires assistance!" Mara rushed to them, taking the weight of the younger Medusan. Up close, she recognized him as one of the junior judges who had been on the inspection team, the one who had been most skeptical of the Resolute's combat logs. "Atmospheric, poisoning," the judge gasped. "Targeted, bioweapon." Mara's blood ran cold. Not just sabotage, a deliberate attack on the council itself, timed to coincide with Earth's hearing. "We need to get you to a containment chamber," she said, already calculating the fastest route. "Professor, can you manage on your own?" The elderly Medusan nodded, his ancient eyes sharp with understanding. "Go. Save him if you can." Supporting the judge's weight, Mara fought her way toward the nearest exit. The chamber was thinning out now, many delegates having fled to safer areas, others unconscious on the floor as council medical teams finally arrived. The corridor outside was equally chaotic, emergency barriers dropping into place, locking down sections of the station. Mara could see one, about to seal the path they needed. "Hold on," she told the judge, then broke into a run, half carrying him toward the descending barrier. They slid beneath it with seconds to spare, the heavy shield locking into place behind them with a definitive thud. This section of corridor was eerily empty, emergency lighting casting blood-red shadows across the walls. The judge's breathing was becoming more labored, his skin taking on a grayish tinge that Mara recognized as critical distress in Medusan physiology. "Stay with me," she urged, checking the nearest terminal for directions to the medical bay. The display was scrambled, security protocols having locked out standard access. Mara slammed her fist against it in frustration. "Left, at junction," the judge managed. "Automatic. Quarantine." Mara nodded, adjusting her grip to better support him as they moved forward. The station's design was alien to her, but the universal principles of emergency management suggested quarantine facilities would be centrally located for maximum accessibility. They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. The left path was marked with symbols Mara recognized as medical warnings. As they turned into it, a shadow moved ahead, someone running away from the quarantine area. "Hey," Mara called out, "we need medical assistance." The figure paused, then turned, revealing the copper-skinned council member who had been most hostile during both the inspection and the hearing. For a moment, their eyes met across the corridor, and Mara saw something unexpected, not fear or confusion, but cold calculation. Then the council member turned and fled, disappearing around a corner. "That was Delegate Saran," the judge whispered. "Why would he—" Understanding clicked into place. "He's involved in the sabotage," Mara said grimly. "We need to report this, but first, we're getting you to quarantine." The quarantine facility was just ahead, its doors sealed, but responding to the judge's biological signature. Inside, automated systems activated, scanning the judge's condition and immediately dispensing targeted countermeasures through atmospheric release. Mara helped him onto an examination platform, where mechanical arms began administering treatment. His breathing eased almost immediately, though his skin remained an unhealthy gray. "You risked contamination," the judge said weakly. "The toxin could have affected you." "Human physiology is adaptable," Mara replied, though in truth, she could feel a burning sensation in her lungs that suggested the toxin wasn't entirely benign to her system either. "Rest. I need to alert security about Delegate Saran." She moved to the communication panel, but before she could activate it, alarms blared again, different in tone from the atmospheric warning. These were security alerts. The quarantine doors sealed with a hiss of hydraulics, and a computerized voice announced, "Biohazard containment protocol engaged. All occupants are now under Class 1 quarantine restriction. Unauthorized departure is a violation of Council Security Statute 5.3 and will result in immediate defensive response." They were locked in, and somewhere outside, a saboteur was escaping, possibly to frame Earth for an attack on the Council itself. Back on the Resolute, Renji surveyed the damage with growing alarm. The hull breach had been small, but precisely targeted, disrupting life support systems and communications simultaneously. Engineering crews were already making repairs, but the timing couldn't have been worse. "Status report," he demanded, entering the bridge where Lieutenant Park had assumed temporary command. "Hull breach contained, communications partially restored," Park reported crisply. "Dr. Hayes reports all refugees secure in Medical Bay 3, which maintained full life support throughout the incident. And our crew? 2 injuries during emergency response, none critical. However," Park hesitated. "Speak freely, Lieutenant," Renji prompted. "Sir, the breach pattern is unusual. Preliminary analysis suggests it originated from inside the ship." Renji's expression darkened. "Sabotage confirmed. Then, what about the Council station? Any communication?" "Fragmented reports only. The station experienced simultaneous systems failures in multiple sectors, including the Council chamber. There are unconfirmed reports of a bioweapon release." "A coordinated attack," Renji concluded. "On both our ship and the Council, timed precisely during Earth's hearing." He activated his command interface. "Locate Chief Zhao and Ambassador Velcor." The system processed for several seconds before responding. "Chief Zhao and Ambassador Velcor are currently in Detention Block A of Council Station Gamma 9. "Detention?" Renji's head snapped up. "Explain." "Council security forces have detained all Earth representatives, pending investigation of suspected terrorism against the Council." The pieces fell into place with chilling clarity. "And Captain Lin?" Another pause. "Captain Mara Lin's location is currently unknown. Last tracked location, Medical Quarantine Facility, Level 5, Council Station Gamma 9. Renji made his decision instantly. "Lieutenant Park, you have the bridge. Maintain repairs and prepare for emergency departure if necessary. I'm taking a shuttle to the station." "Sir, if the Earth delegation is under detention, then someone is trying very hard to frame us," Renji finished. "And the captain is out there, potentially in danger. I'm not leaving her behind." In the quarantine facility, Mara was frantically trying to override the lockdown protocols while monitoring the judge's condition. His breathing had stabilized, but he remained semi-conscious, occasionally murmuring in his native language. The communication panel was locked to external channels, but internal diagnostics were still accessible. Mara pulled up the station's security protocols, searching for emergency override options. "Come on," she muttered, scrolling through incomprehensible, to her, layers of Council bureaucratic code. "There has to be a way to report an active threat." A soft chime from the medical platform drew her attention. The judge was awake, his compound eyes focusing on her with effort. "Captain Lin," he said, voice raspy but stronger. "The security protocols can be overridden with judicial authority." "Can you authorize it?" Mara asked, moving back to his side. The judge's expression was difficult to read through alien features, but she sensed hesitation. "Why would you report Delegate Saran? He is a respected council member. Your accusation would only further damage Earth's position. Because he's involved in an attack that nearly killed you, and could still harm others," Mara replied without hesitation. "I don't care about politics when lives are at stake." The judge studied her for a long moment, then slowly raised his hand to the scanner beside the platform. "Judicial override, Kulvan of the Fourth Circuit. Authorization, Emergency Protocol 793. The system acknowledged with a series of tones, and the communication panel unlocked. "Thank you," Mara said, already moving to establish contact with station security. "Captain," the judge called after her, "your actions are inconsistent with Deathworld behavioral patterns." Despite everything, Mara felt a small smile tug at her lips. "Only if you assume violence is our default state, rather than our last resort." She activated the communication panel, but before she could speak, the quarantine doors unexpectedly cycled open. Delegate Saran stood in the doorway, flanked by two security officers bearing the insignia of his home planet, rather than council authority. "Ah, the human captain," he said, copper skin gleaming under the harsh quarantine lights. "How convenient to find you here, contaminated by the very toxin your kind released into the council chamber." "That's a lie," Mara replied evenly, positioning herself between the newcomers and the judge. "You were fleeing this area when I arrived. You're involved in the attack." "Preposterous!" Saran stepped into the room, his guards moving to flank Mara. "I was conducting an inspection when the alarm sounded. These officers will confirm I've been assisting evacuation efforts since the incident began." The guards nodded in unison, clearly rehearsed. "Judge Clavan," Soran continued, turning his attention to the Medusan. "You were specifically targeted because of your fair-minded evaluation of the human vessel. The Earth delegation feared your report would reveal their true nature." "That makes no sense," Mara interjected. "If we wanted to disrupt the hearing, why would I be here saving him instead of escaping with my crew?" "A transparent attempt to appear heroic," Soran dismissed. "Officers, take the human into custody. She is to be held with the other Earth representatives, pending terrorism charges." The guards moved forward, but Judge Clavan raised his hand. "Wait!" All eyes turned to the Medusan, who was now sitting upright on the platform, his color improving visibly. "The quarantine sensors," he said, gesturing to the control panel. "They would have recorded who entered this facility first, and their biological condition upon entry." Soren's confident expression faltered slightly. "The emergency has corrupted many systems. Such records would be unreliable. Council medical systems maintain triple redundant logs," the judge countered. "Captain Lin, please access quarantine record 7J, current cycle." Mara moved to the panel, keenly aware of the guard's weapons trained on her back. She found the record and displayed it on the main screen. The log was clear. 2 entries to the quarantine area during the emergency. First, Delegate Saran, carrying an unidentified container, 17 minutes before the alarms. Second, Captain Lin supporting Judge Clavan, both showing signs of toxin exposure. Soren's copper skin darkened, with what Mara presumed was his species' equivalent of a flush. There must be an error." "Unlikely," Judge Clavan said, his voice growing stronger. "What was in the container, Delegate Saran?" "Officers!" Saran snapped, ignoring the question. "Arrest the human immediately!" The guards hesitated, looking between their superior and the judge. In that moment of confusion, the quarantine facility doors cycled open again. Renji stood in the doorway, backed by council security forces, bearing the proper insignia of central authority. "Captain," he said, relief evident in his voice. "Are you all right?" "Better than expected," Mara replied, not taking her eyes off Saran. "Executive Officer Renji, I believe Delegate Saran is responsible for the attack on both the council chamber and our ship. Judge Clavan has evidence." The council security forces moved swiftly, disarming Saran's guards and surrounding the delegate himself. "This is outrageous," Saran protested. "I am a senior council member. You cannot." "We can and will investigate all evidence," interrupted a new voice. The chief high judge entered the quarantine facility, its crystalline form still amber-tinged with concern. "Delegate Soran, your private security forces have no authority in critical areas during an emergency. This alone warrants inquiry." Soren seemed to deflate, his confident demeanor crumbling. "The humans are dangerous," he insisted, but his voice had lost its conviction. "Their kind always are. The galaxy was safer before they left their Deathworld." "And yet," Judge Clavan observed, "when crisis came, it was the human who risked contamination to save an alien life, while a respected council member fled after releasing a toxin." The chief judge gestured to the security team. "Take Delegate Saran to detention for questioning. Secure all evidence from this facility." It turned its crystalline gaze to Mara. "Captain Lin, your crew and ambassador have been released from detention. This situation requires thorough investigation before the council can resume your hearing." "I understand," Mara said. "My ship stands ready to assist in any way needed." As Soran was led away, still protesting his innocence, Renji moved to Mara's side. "The Resolute is secure," he reported quietly. "Minimal damage, all refugees safe. Preliminary evidence suggests the saboteur used council access codes to trigger the hull breach remotely. Coordinated with the chamber attack," Mara concluded, "to frame Earth and ensure our application would be rejected permanently." Judge Clavan had risen from the medical platform, his recovery progressing rapidly under the quarantine facility's advanced care. He approached Mara with measured steps. "Captain Lin," he said formally, "I owe you my life, and the council owes you an apology. My inspection report will be reconsidered in light of these events." "Thank you, Judge," Mara replied. "But more important than any report is what happens next. Earth seeks partnership with the council, not because we need validation, but because we believe in cooperation across differences." The judge's compound eyes studied her. "Even with those who fear you?" "Especially with those who fear us," Mara said. "Fear only dissolves through understanding." The following day, repairs to both the Resolute and the council station were well underway. The toxin had been identified and neutralized, with only 3 casualties, all expected to make full recoveries. Delegate Saran remained in detention, though he had yet to reveal his full motives or any co-conspirators. The council had reconvened in a smaller auxiliary chamber, with limited attendance and heightened security. Earth's delegation, Mara, Renji, Ambassador Velcor, and Chief Zhao stood once again before the high judges, awaiting their decision. The chief judge's crystalline form had returned to its natural clear state, suggesting a return to emotional equilibrium. "Representatives of Earth," it began, voice resonating through the chamber. "Recent events have cast both shadow and light upon your application for council membership. The sabotage attempt has been confirmed as originating from within the council itself, a disturbing development that requires extensive investigation." Murmurs passed through the reduced assembly. Judge Clavan's revised inspection report notes that the Resolute's response to the Draxon 4 crisis was proportionate and primarily humanitarian in nature. Furthermore, Captain Lin's actions during yesterday's emergency demonstrated the positive aspects of what the Council has historically deemed Deathworld traits: rapid adaptation, decisive action under pressure, and willingness to assume personal risk for community benefit. The Chief Judge paused, its crystalline structure refracting light in complex patterns. However, Concerns remain regarding Earth's technological trajectory and historical patterns of conflict. The Council is not prepared to offer full membership at this time. Mara maintained her composure, though disappointment was a bitter taste in her mouth. So close, yet still rejected. Instead, the Chief Judge continued, we propose a provisional integration program. Earth representatives will serve in Council humanitarian and peacekeeping operations for a period of 5 standard cycles. During this time, technological exchange will proceed under supervised conditions, and Earth status will be reviewed annually rather than generationally. Ambassador Velcour stepped forward. Esteemed High Judges, this represents significant progress from previous decisions. On behalf of Earth, we accept these terms with gratitude and determination to prove ourselves worthy partners. The Chief Judge inclined its crystalline head. Then it is decided. The Resolute will serve as Earth's flagship in this new arrangement, with Captain Lin retaining command due to her demonstrated judgment. As the formal proceedings concluded, various council members approached the Earth delegation, some curious, others cautiously respectful. Judge Clavan, fully recovered, joined them. An imperfect outcome, he observed, but perhaps a necessary one. The council changes slowly, Captain. 5 cycles will pass before you realize it. 5 years is nothing in cosmic terms, Mara agreed. And it gives us time to change more minds. Including mine, the judge admitted. I confess I began your inspection with preconceptions about Deathworld species. Your actions forced me to reconsider. That's all we ask of anyone, Mara said. To judge us by what we do, not by what world shaped us. As they prepared to return to the Resolute, Renji fell into step beside Mara. Orders, Captain. Prepare for departure, she replied. We'll escort the refugee transport to the nearest safe harbor, then report to Council Fleet Command for our first official assignment. And the hull? He asked, a hint of their old argument resurfacing. Should we clean the exterior before we dock at the Council Fleet Yard? Mara considered the question as they walked through the station corridors toward the docking bay. The bloodstains that had caused such controversy now seemed like a lifetime ago. No, she decided finally. Not yet. Let them see the blood on our ship and learn what it really means. 2 days later, the UEHS Resolute detached from Council Station Gamma 9, its hull still bearing the marks of rescue and sacrifice. As it moved away, navigation lights blinking against the void. The ship cut an unusual silhouette among the sleeker Council vessels, now escorting it. On the bridge, Mara stood at the viewport, watching the station recede into the distance. Ambassador Velcour joined her, his triple eyelids blinking in their particular pattern of thoughtful consideration. 5 years of probation, he mused. A blink in galactic terms, but a significant commitment for a human captain. Worth it, Mara replied simply. Not just for Earth, but for every world labeled too dangerous before it's understood. The blood on your ship may have started as evidence against you, the ambassador observed. But now it stands as testimony to something else entirely. Mara nodded, watching as the Resolute's engines powered up for the jump to their next destination. The ship that had arrived at the Council bearing bloodstains now departed with something more valuable. Recognition, however tentative, that the very traits that made humans dangerous could also make them indispensable. Captain, Renji called from the command chair. Course laid in for the refugee transport escort. Ready when you are? Mara turned from the viewport, the weight of command settling comfortably on her shoulders once more. Take us out, Executive Officer. We have work to do. As the Resolute accelerated away from the Council Station, its controversial blood-stained hull caught the light of an unfamiliar sun, no longer a mark of shame, but a badge of hard-won respect. The Deathworlders had arrived in the galactic community not with conquest, but with compassion. Not seeking domination, but demonstrating devotion to life in all its forms. It wasn't full acceptance, not yet, but it was a beginning. And for humanity, Beginnings were what they did best.